Hi, welcome to Audrey Meyer Profile Talk.
I'm here with Austin Kalama in Cabarete, Dominican Republic. Hey, Austin, how are
How's
you
it
doing?
going? I'm great. How you doing?
Very good. Super excited to have Austin here with us. He was joining the Master of the Ocean in Cabarete 2021. Did some nice shows. So tell us a little bit how it went.
It went like about as good as I could have asked for, having to be my first time coming down. I was unfortunately completely unprepared for this. It was a last minute thing that came up. One of my friends just invited me down and was like, yo, contest down in Cabarete, come check it out. Never been to the Dominican Republic before, so I was like, why not come down and check it out? Came down with like basically literally no equipment. And Audrey here and my friend Manuel and a few other people kind of came together and got enough gear for me to, compete and do what I needed to do, and got it all together. The conditions were not the greatest ever, but good enough to get out there, have fun, put on a show, and kind of show what we could do on the wings, with what we have right now. Manuel Salomon, he absolutely killed it in the heat. I had a few heats against him. But it was really fun. The waves are maybe about shoulder, chest high, something like that, enough to, start doing a few little turns and kind of showing off some stuff. The wind was, a little light. So as far as the freestyling went, it was a little hard to get up and really get going and perform to the highest level that I could. But once I got on the wave, I was feeling a little more comfortable, kind of, threw a few things down, kind of did what I could do. But it was good. It was a lot of fun. It was nice getting out here to a new place and kind of seeing what the local talent is like, what's going on, where they are in terms of the sport. And it's awesome to see, the locals really taking on that sport and growing it and trying to do new things with it and really advancing it. Like Manuel, some of the airs he was doing, I saw him because he's goofy, so he can launch those airs going out, and I was like, I wish I could do that. He was punting some big ones.
Yeah.
So, but it was awesome. It was awesome seeing what everybody was doing and having a good time. And,
that's great.
Competed in a few different things. I did the winging, the prone surfing, and then the stand-up paddling.
Yep.
And, prone surfing, I wouldn't say I excel whatsoever in that. I'm a decent prone surfer, but with small waves, nothing special. Stand-up paddling, did decent, I got third in my division for that. So that was fun. Got second in the wing. So, it was good. I had a lot of fun. That's what matters.
That's good. That's good. And it was definitely great to see you riding here. It's always great to see people from different places, especially you from Maui, bring some different skills and riding a different way. I mean, the local are pretty good here, but they were all stoked to watch you like pumping and winging and like showing you skills in the water. So thank you for doing that.
Of course,
yeah.
Of course.
And well, you have a big family of watermen, and what I'd like you to share with the audience, people listening, is the history a little bit about foiling. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the history of foiling, it actually goes a lot deeper than most people think. When you think of foiling in the mainstream right now, it came up around 2014. We all saw those first videos of Kai in Fiji. The first time I saw him catch a wave, pump out, catch another wave off that first wave, I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, that was crazy. But it actually goes a lot deeper than that. I remember being 8, 9 years old when my dad was still pretty into the whole tow scene and big wave scene. When we lived in Haiku, I'd go into the house and there was these just big metal triangles. And I was like, what the hell are these things? When I was little, I had no clue what they were, but they were the first original air chair foils. Like, it originally came from a wakeboarding thing. There was this thing called the air chair, and it was this chair you'd sit on and you'd hold on to the bar, and underneath that chair on a surfboard was about a 3-foot mast with a hard aluminum foil.
Yeah.
And it was a very basic crude design, and it worked enough so that when you were behind a boat and you're getting pulled, it would rise up and create enough lift so that you could control it. And I mean, I've recently seen guys doing crazy flips on the air chair, but I want to say it was back in around early 90s, late 80s, where my dad's neighbor, Brett Lickle, who was basically the inventor of the strap crew, he was putting bikes on surfboards and foils on surfboards and this on a surfboard and that on a surfboard and basically going crazy. But he took that original airfoil, put it underneath one of the tow boards, put snowboard bindings on it, and they were strapped, locked in, wearing snowboard boots on top of a board, on top of a foil. And I couldn't even imagine the wipeouts back then.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so they kind of figured out how to just, ride it on flat water behind a jet ski. And then they started taking it into bigger waves and bigger waves and bigger waves. And then they kind of realized like, there's no like limit to how fast we can really go on this thing, because you can always trim down the foil, make it more streamlined, make it more high aspect, make it faster, do this, do that. And my dad at the time was, he was designing fins for, God, I forget the company, but he was designing fins. So he had a CNC machine. So he was basically designing these different types of foils, some a little bigger, some a little smaller, and all these different things. And they were taking out the jaws, other secret outer reefs.
Yeah.
And they were trying to do down, like my dad told me they tried to do a downwinder on it one time. And they're like, no, you can't do this. This isn't going to work ever. Like, you can't do this.
When you're talking downwinder, which type of downwinder? Like there was no winging at the time.
They were basically taking out their jet skis and towing into open ocean.
Okay.
And it's not even like an open ocean ground swell. It's more like an open ocean wind swell. So these swells will form up, break, roll out, and then another one will form behind them. So it's more of looking for what's in front of you to figure out what's going to happen behind you. And so they were doing that for a while, and nothing really came of it, other than the big wave towing. And I feel like that's mainly the reason why it never really took off in the first place, because their foils weren't so advanced. They didn't have all the hydrodynamics and and they didn't have it all figured out yet, So they could create foils that would work at really high speeds, and when you had that really constant direct source of energy behind them.
Yeah.
So if you had a jet ski and a 20-foot wave, it was awesome. But, that many people, maybe had 10 people or so could do that. It wasn't really that available to the general public at that point. And so for a while they were kind of doing that, and it's, somewhat phased out. You had your kite foilers here and there, and, foiling wasn't like, it wasn't gone. It was just really niche, a couple guys here and there maybe had a foil, but nothing really serious. And then I think it was right around 2012, 2013, the dude Alex Aguirre, who actually developed the first modern foils, he's one of my main sponsors. So he's told me a lot of the history of it.
Which sponsor is that?
That's Go Foil. Check them out, they're good. But he was telling me how around 2012, 2013, Kyle Lenny was talking to him about trying to design some foils that would work at a lower speed and create more lift. So right around that time, Alex started developing the first Kai model of the Go Foil. And that was, it worked good for a little bit. They were developing it for about a year or two before he found.
Sorry, my dog is licking your legs.
Yeah, I'm just grabbing the dog's leg right now. But so after about a year or two of kind of messing around with that, they found that design that kind of, carried that speed and could generate that lift at a lower speed, and it's a lot of hydrodynamics that revolves around, I don't know if you know Bernoulli's equation, which is how air flowing over the top of an airplane wing generates lift since it's going faster than on the bottom. And that pressure change, less pressure on the top than the bottom, pulls that wing up through the water.
Yeah.
So it's kind of once they started applying aerodynamic principles to the hydrodynamic foils, they really figured out what you could actually do with these foils by changing that front facing foil and other aspects of it like that. And so once they really figured out the hydrodynamics of it, then things really started changing. You got these high aspect foils that worked at higher speeds, these low aspect foils that could generate lift at really low speeds. And that's when it really kind of exploded. Everyone could see what you could do with these foils, and a lot started happening really quickly, and when I got into it, we were still kind of in like the original Kai foil phase, those first kind of designs.
Yeah.
And then, I've been involving with the sport, and there's just been so much change throughout the last, even just 4 or 5 years. It's ridiculous. You could go on forever about all these different designs going on right
Yeah.
now, but that's kind of like the backstory history of how we got to where we are now.
I mean, it really allowed the foil to be accessible for more people by changing sizes. So can you tell us a little bit what makes a more easier foil something to learn on versus something which is a little more advanced? What should people learn first and then go towards once they get better?
Well, I would say the bigger the better at first. The bigger the foil is, the fatter that front facing foil section is, the lower speed you can generate lift at. So, for someone who's just really getting into it, you don't want to be going 20 miles per hour on a foil that's, that thick that can, cut you pretty bad. Let's be honest, it can be dangerous, But if you're just beginning, you got a big old foil and the front's probably about, that thick on it. It might give you a bruise, but it's not really going to cut you too bad. On a foil, you probably, foil up that wide, as the first 280 Malico models, you could probably get going at 6, maybe 7 miles per hour on that. If you're on a big, 120 liter board, 130 liter board on a big old wing like that, I mean, you could just stand around all day and just stand there and, lift up, and it's pretty simple. So, like when you're first starting, bigger is better, slower is better. You really want to work your way into it. I'd say jumping right into this. It's a lot like giving someone a kite and a kite foil and a kite and a kite board and just like, all right, here, go kiting.
Yeah.
You don't know what to do yet. You don't know how to stay safe. You don't know how to control that. You don't know what's going on at all. It's a lot like that. A few simple steps, how to control the foil, how to get rid of the foil, how to, if the foil does this, you want to do that.
Yeah.
A few really easy steps can go a long way with learning. So I'd say get a big old board, get a big old foil. You don't need a huge mass when you're starting because, the higher you go, the harder the fall. What I've always said is, start off slow, bring it up an inch or two, bring it back down, bring it up a little higher, bring it back down. If you're just trying to get straight up right off the bat, you're going to cavitate and fall this way, that way, either way. So I always tell people, just bring it up slowly, 1 inch at a time. Bring it up, bring it down, bring it up, bring it down. If you can have that control to tell it when to come up, tell it when to come down, that's the first steps of really telling the foil what to do, because the foil is like a bucking bronco, It's going to do what it wants, and you kind of just got to roll with that and kind of, all right, settle down a little bit. Let's bring it down here. Let's bring it down. Because if you're not telling it what to do, that thing's going to pop straight out of the water. You're going straight backwards,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's a lot of learning how to deal with that lift, so
yeah,
just going slow.
For me, Austin, when you are the master of pumping. It's like when I'm learning foiling, I'm like trying to learn how to pump. I'm like Googling YouTube and hear all the video about Austin, about pumping, jumping from a wall and pumping the board. So I want to know, and I'm sure you guys want to know as well, tell us what's the secret.
Okay. Every foil has a sweet spot, you could, because I was riding a few different foils this week, when I didn't have the gear that I would usually be on. I was trying other gear, and I'd noticed each foil has a different sweet spot. If you can find that spot on that board where your feet need to be, you can find that rhythm. But if you're fighting that rhythm and if you find yourself just working way too hard and not getting anything out of it, you're not in that sweet spot. I usually find it with my back foot either right on the mast or a few inches in front of the mast. I see a lot of people ride with their foot a little bit behind the mast. What I feel like that does is that gives you leverage to pivot the mast a little more, but it doesn't let you drive it down as well. Since you have that pressure behind where the mast is, it almost makes the board want to kind of go back like this. When you can get that drive in front of where the mast is, you can tell the whole thing pump down, and then you just bring that weight back, and it's gonna want to come up on its own. A lot of people, you know, when you step behind the mast and you try to angle it up, that angle isn't what you want. You don't want to angle it. You want lift. The lift is what's going to create that speed. The angle is just going to make you stall out, you know? So when you're pumping down on the entire foil and creating that drive out of it, rather than trying to, you know, get that tilt out of it, you're going to get way more drive, way more speed, and it's going to react a lot faster. And that's one of the things I see the most. But then again, every foil has its own characteristics. So just because that's how I feel like it is, doesn't mean that's exactly what you have to do. You know, that sweet spot is a little different on every foil. Whereas, you know, some of the older foils, I feel like you needed a more rhythmic up and down kind of movement. Whereas these new high aspects, if you can keep a quick little bounce right on the top of the water, they kind of keep that speed a little faster. So it's all about finding that sweet spot on the foil and finding the right rhythm on the foil.
Okay.
Once you find the sweet spot and you pair that sweet spot with the right rhythm, that's when you'll really feel like that effortless gliding. You know, a lot of times, like, you're either not in the sweet spot and trying the wrong pump, or, you know, you're in the sweet spot, but you're not getting the right rhythm. And that's why it just feels like slow or sticky or something like that. Usually, you know, when you're on the right foil, you can find that sweet spot, you can find that rhythm. And that's when you'll really be like, wow, like this wing goes effortlessly through the water. But it takes a while to find that, you know, dialing in your gear, finding the right front wing to tail combination, you know, a lot with the new the track mount on the foil, just putting your foil in that exact right spot. It can take a while to really know where that sweet spot is. So, you know, if you're, you know, just working as hard as you can, trying to pump as hard as you can, and it's just not happening, don't get discouraged. Don't think, oh, I can't do it. Think, oh, I need to, you know, refine my equipment a little more. I need to try maybe a new tail wing, or maybe a little more pitch, a little less pitch, move it forward, move it back. And there's just so many aspects to it, you know, that it can take a while. Like, I've had new foils that I've gotten, and I'm like, this sucks. And he's like, try this, try that, move it here, move it there. And, you know, an adjustment literally like that, like quarter, like millimeter, you know, anything like that can completely change the way it moves. So every foil is like, it's like an exploration. You got to explore the foil, see how it reacts to this, how it reacts to that, how I'm going to react to this, how it's going to move through the water in these conditions, those conditions. So there's so much to it that it really can take a long time to dial in a foil. And once you have it dialed in, like, spend some time on it, you know, really get to know it. But that's it. It's fun. The sport is evolving so fast that you think you got it, and like, oh wait, no, now I want to try that foil.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot that can change like that.
So talking about equipment, what are you using right now to go proning or to go winging?
You know, I've been on the GoFoil GL 140 for a while, which is, I think, last season's high aspect wings. He came out with the NL 160 and 180, and I really like them on the wave, but they don't generate the drive that I want when I'm pumping. So for someone who's purely looking for riding waves, the NLs are amazing. They move through the water so quickly, and they turn a lot better. But for what I like personally in my surfing, I like to catch a wave, do some nice carves, keep that speed and kick out, and get, you know, connect maybe 2 or 3 waves.
Yeah.
Whereas on the NLs, you could get a crazy feeling on the wave, but once you kicked out, they didn't carry that speed as well as I would have liked to. But that could just be because I was on the wrong tail, wrong setup, wrong this or that. You know, that's why it takes so long to figure out really what you like in a foil. But, you know, I was using the GL 140 for a while because they just have the best combination of wave riding and pumping that I like. You know, some people are purely focused on the pumping aspect, where it's like they just want a big old high aspect where they don't even care about turning. They want to catch a wave, pump out, catch another wave. Like GL 160 was like that. I really liked it for pumping. I remember I was in Japan for a little bit, and I went to this one spot, I think it was Omaizaki or something like that, and I caught 25 waves back to back. No, basically no turning whatsoever, but 25 waves back to back, and I was pumping for 13 minutes straight.
Wow.
So something like that. It was a big old. It was probably about that wide. That it had a cord about that long, about that thick, real high aspect. But if it's just tiny waves and there's nothing else to do, I'll do that. But if there's actually some decent surf to ride, I like to really get more into it, get a little surfier with it.
Yeah.
I like back in Maui, most of the crew I run with is a lot of shortboarders, so within my foiling, I have a lot of shortboarding, influence. All my friends are doing big off the top turns and throw tails and blow tails and airs and this and that, so I want to ride like my friends ride, but I'm riding a completely different type of wave riding craft, so a lot of the like evolution of the sport, I feel like, has been coming from shortboarding, and that like you see guys like Kai and Zane, and a lot of those guys are really getting aggressive on the foil. And so that's coming from a lot of shortboard influence. And I feel like the next big kind of move in it is going more towards snowboarding, actually, because the rotations and twists with the straps that guys are doing snowboarding is really influencing a lot of the guys on the waves right now, like Akai and Jeffrey, and a lot of those guys are starting to do flips on the waves and stuff like that. I feel like that's gonna really start picking up. Like I saw, who's that guy who was wake foiling, who did like a backflip 360. I don't even know what it was. It was crazy. But stuff like that, I feel like is gonna be really coming in. And I don't know if you call it like the freestyling side of it, but also the wave riding side of it is gonna be a lot more progressive coming up soon.
So you mentioning, when you're talking about all those tricks, you're mentioning about prone surfing with full straps, right? Obviously you need full strap to be able to do all those tricks.
Mhm.
But what about now, would you use the same equipment when you go wing foiling?
I would use I'd probably use a little smaller wing, like a foil wing foiling than prone foiling, because you're dealing with a lot more speed at a lot more constantly. Like constantly you're moving at probably twice as fast as you would be on a wave, when the wind is gusting and you're really, yanking on that wing and really doing a big tack, like you're really moving on that thing. So I would usually use a bit smaller of a wing, but I mean, compared to when I'm like big wave tow foiling, like when I get out to Piahi and I'm towing out there on my foil, I mean, I'm using a wing probably maybe less than a foot long, so it all just depends on the wave size, wave conditions, whether it's a big, mush burger, or if it's something I really got to be driving down the line on. There's so many different aspects to what I want out of a foil, given different conditions,
Yeah.
But like when I'm winging, for the most part, I'm looking for something that'll handle that speed a little better, And a lot of people like foils that, maneuver. See, I like to push on my foils a little bit. I like to feel, that sturdy kind of feeling. Like if I'm going, 25, 30 miles an hour flying down the line, I like to really give my foil a little juice, push on it pretty hard. And then, when I'm popping out of the water, I know that if I push this hard, I'm going to get this kind of pop out of it. Whereas there's some of these new foils that are a little higher aspect. If you push on it too hard, they're going to drop out on you. So it's a lot of what you're looking for. See, if I was racing, I wouldn't want to have to push so hard on it because I'm going way faster. But if I'm freestyling, I want that really reliable pressure that I can push on and get that pop out of. So, everyone's looking for that different, aspect to what they want, and they're winging, they're surfing, all these different things.
Yeah, great. But one more question, and because I know you're having a barbecue at my neighbor's house, so at Manuel's house. How do you see the future of foiling?
Oh my goodness. Wherever you want it to be, whether you're on a lake foiling behind a boat, or purely winging, or purely kiting, or windsurfing, it can be whatever you want it to be. You know, I'm seeing the wingers out in like Europe doing just the craziest flips. And of course, like every sport, I see it evolving to bigger, faster, more rotations, more spins, more flips. But it's all foiling is so much of a personal thing. You know, you can see Kyle Lenny or whoever going 100 miles an hour and doing a 20-foot air, but you know, if that's not what you're, if you purely just want to feel that gliding, effortless sensation, you don't need any of that. You could get on the very first model foil that anyone ever made, and you can feel that sensation. And if that's all you want, that's awesome. You know, sometimes that's all I want. You know, a lot of the time I'm going so fast, doing all this and that and everything else that sometimes I just want to slow it down and hop on an old foil and literally just feel that gliding feeling again. So of course, the progression of the sport is going to go bigger airs, more rotations, more technical grabs, flips, other things like that. But I feel the essence of foiling is always going to be that first feeling of weightlessness. You know, you remember the first time you hopped on a foil and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? You know, it's such a different feeling. It's not even like a feeling, it's an emotion. You know, everyone as a kid is like, I want to fly. I want to know what it's like, you know, not feel anything under me and just float.
Yeah.
And that feeling itself is so pure, you know. And you think, yeah, that's surfing or that's body surfing, but it's so much different. It's such a unique feeling to literally feel no friction underneath your feet and just move over the water. So no matter where it goes, I feel like that's always going to be what the main essence of it is. Like, how does it feel moving over the water when I'm gliding on this thing? You know? And that's usually when I'm whether I'm winging or towing or prone surfing, it's like, how does this feel underneath my feet? Like, does this feel just effortless? Does it feel like I can just glide on this thing for miles? You know, like, especially when I'm downwind. Downwinding is something
we were
else.
talking about downwinder. That's a full other story, guys. Yeah. Good. Well, Austin, thank you so much.
It was awesome.
And it's been great to have you in Cabarete with us, sharing some waves.
It's been the greatest time ever. If you guys haven't been to Cabarete, I would recommend it so highly. First time here, the wind is amazing, the waves are amazing, the people are amazing, everything. Man, I am so thankful for you guys having me down here.
No, thank you.
Sharing you guys' home with me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Well, guys, thank you for following us, and I will see you guys on the next podcast. I think we're going to interview Manuel on the next podcast.
Yeah, you should.
So you guys don't miss out this one, and enjoy the water and keep flying, keep having fun floating over the waves. Yay! Bye, guys.
Yeah. Aloha.
Thank you guys for watching. See you soon on our next Pro Foil Talk with a new guest. Enjoy the ocean.